warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam damai sejahtera untuk kita semua. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya. Welcome to the session on the Indonesian academic diaspora in the US, maintaining an active and productive engagement with Indonesia. This is the first part of this session. The second part will be a presentation given by Pak Rizal, who's the Regional Director of the Nature Conservancy Indonesia. So, my name is Satrio Adi Wicaksono, and I am a PhD candidate in climate science at Brown University, and also a member of the Planning and Monitoring Division of I4, I4, Ikatan Ilmuwan Indonesia Internasional, atau International Indonesian Scholars Association, which sponsors this discussion session. So, I will be moderating this session, and today in this interactive discussion, we would like to discuss two important topics. The first topic is called the state of science, technology, and innovation in Indonesia, during which we will have a conversation about both the challenges and opportunities in the research and development sector in Indonesia. The second topic will be more specific. I think it will be more relevant to many of us sitting here in this room today. It is entitled, How May US-Based Indonesian Academic Diaspora Help? So we will discuss some concrete steps that have been taken and will be taken by members of the Indonesian academic diaspora, or people who are sitting here today, to expedite the transfer of knowledge from the US, or from developed countries, to Indonesia. So, for each of the two topics that we'll be discussing in the next hour or so, I'll first ask some questions to the panelists and then open up the floor for Q&A. And after we're done with the first topic, we'll move swiftly to move on to the second topic. So let me start first by introducing the two panelists that we have this afternoon. To my left is Professor Nelson Tansu, who is an endowed chair professor in photonics and nanoelectrics, as well as director of Center for Photonics and Nanoelectrics in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering, Lehigh University in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. He received his BSc in Applied Math, Electrical Engineering and Physics from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and his PhD in Electrical Engineering also from the same university. Professor Tansu's research projects cover both the theoretical and experimental aspects of the physics of semiconductor optoelectronics materials and devices, as well as the physics of nanostructure. Professor Tansu is a prolific scientist. He has more than 270 refereed international journal publications and holds multiple US patents. He also reviews regularly and serves as editors for leading journals in applied physics, quantum electronics, nanotechnology, photonics, and optoelectronics areas. For their accomplishments, Professor Tansu and his students at Lehigh have been given several highly regarded awards in their fields. And then we also have Dr. Haryo Winarso. Pak Haryo received a bachelor's degree in architecture from Universitas Gadjah Mada in Yogyakarta, a Master of Engineering in Human Settlements Development from the Asian Institute of Technology in Bangkok, and a PhD from the Development Planning Unit, University College London. His research interests are in urban design and inner city redevelopment, planning theory, peri-urban development, and land and housing development. Dr. Haryo Winarso is currently on leave from his position as Associate Professor in the School of Architecture, Planning and Policy Development, Institute Technology Bandung, to serve as Attaché of Education and Culture at the Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia in Washington, D.C. In his capacity as Attaché, Pak Haryo oversees the efforts to maintain and improve the very good bilateral relationship between Indonesia and the US through education and culture. For example, his office provides numerous types of support to thousands of Indonesian students in the States, as well as American students and professors interested in conducting research and study abroad in Indonesia. Pak Haryo is also a tireless supporter for a greater and stronger cooperation between universities and academics in Indonesia and their counterparts in the US. So, Pak Nelson, Dan Pak Haryo, I'm honored to be joined by the two of you today. Thank you, terima kasih. Thank you so much for joining me. So let us start with the first topic, which is, so the title of the first topic is the state of science, technology, and innovation in Indonesia. So let me begin our discussion by quoting from a McKinsey report on Indonesia that was released 2 years ago. The report says the following, quote, by 2030, the country could have the world's 7th largest economy, overtaking Germany and the United Kingdom. But to meet its ambitious growth targets and attract international investment, it must do more. So we know that the SBY administration had indeed set serious growth targets through the MP3EI, MP3EI, the Master Plan for Acceleration and Expansion of Indonesia's Economic Development. And a critical component of MP3EI is the goals to export more value-added products and create a knowledge-based economy. Now, if we want to do so, that means Indonesia also needs to boost its research and development in science, technology, and innovation. So let me begin by first asking Pak Haryo. Pak Haryo, could you comment on some of the primary challenges that in the areas that I mentioned before, namely the areas of science, technology, and innovation, and what the government has actually been doing to address those challenges. So we'll start from there.
Thank you, Pak Satrio. He has always been the support of the IFOR and is very good in coordinating gathering like this to really, actually, we want to have more attention from the diaspora to Indonesia. Well, again, answering your question. Yes, actually, Indonesia now, as you may aware, that we are now in the 2016 largest economy in the world. But not only this, actually, we also have what we call the demographic dividend. We will have more young students, 30 years or less old, and there will be more within 10 to 15 years. And this is, well, it can be good, but if we're not doing, prepare very well for this, it can be disastrous. We will have more young Indonesian who don't have a job. It will create a lot of burden. So there are actually four, to me, primary challenges for this. The first is education, of course, it's important for them. Education. Right now, in Indonesia, we only have less than 100,000 PhD students. If we want to do research, science and technology, this is not enough. Compared with Malaysia, for example, they have 600,000. Not to mention the United States, they have more than almost 2 million PhD students. And we need more student, PhD holders. And of course this, and this is the first. The second one is actually, if we do have PhD, and we can have a PhD, what they will do if they don't have a job. So we really need job for them. What can be the job? This is the second challenge. Research and development in Indonesia is very low. Why? Like I think Satrio has mentioned that we have to be able to export more product with value added. Right now we only export our raw materials. Our friends here from Freeport know that we have a new regulation that we have to export value-added material. So you have to make smeltering or something like that, right? And so that's really the challenge. If we can have this, then research and development will be there. There will be more research and development, and they will need PhD. And for this, of course, we really want to have this. We need more connection with industry. That's the third one. Because right now we don't have industry. The industry is very low because we only sell raw materials, no value-added material. That's make the R&D is small, and that's make PhD that we already have, like Pak Nelson Tansu here. He cannot go back to Indonesia because when he go back to Indonesia, how do he do the research? Where? There's no place for doing research like that. So we do really need that. That's the third challenge. 3 challenges. So what the government done for this? For the education. In the higher education, we want to have more universities. Right now, our enrollment ratio is only 26%, which is only 5 to 6 million Indonesians who can do higher education. Very small. 5 million, of course, is more than Singapore's population, but compared to 250 million Indonesians, that is very small. The educated in Indonesia is still small. So what we like to do is create more, develop more university. Right now, we develop more university in Kalimantan, in Sumatra, and some in Java. We have now 3,000 university, public and private. But of course, the quality is also very diverse, right? From highest quality to low. We also want to develop what we call as the academic comunitas, which is trying like a community, what is it here?
Community college?
Community college, community colleges. We already developed more than 30 community colleges in Indonesia. And this is one. And also in education, we want to send more students to get PhD. For this, we provide scholarship. In United States, for instance, we have now 8,000 Indonesian students. Altogether, we have almost 200,000 Indonesians going studying abroad for master and PhD, which is not enough compared to China. 1.9 million Chinese students studying abroad. Not enough. We want to have more. Our government now is only able to provide around 7,000 master or PhD scholarship every year. Again, this is not enough. But we are trying to do this. And you know, the last scholarship that we have is the Endowment Fund for Education. With this, we can send 3,000 scholarships for master and PhD every year. Again, this is not enough, but we have to do this. That is for the education. For the R&D, of course, like I mentioned, that we have to develop more industry. And in the MP3AE, we want to develop more Center for Excellence in the corridors, which is the place for developing more advanced and perhaps also the applicable technology for developing whatever in the corridor. Something like Corridor 4 is for agriculture, Corridor 2 for service, and so on. And
if I may interject you, so how would the Center of Excellence that you mentioned be different from universities?
Yeah, that's good. So what we would like to have actually in the Center of Excellence is, collaboration with the industry, universities, and the government. And what I want to say is the philanthropics. If we have 4, or if we can put another one, the community, then we have 5. Collaboration, that will be good. the philanthropy perhaps provide some money with the government, and then the university provide the expertise, the PhDs, and the student who can do the research, and the industry will absorb the invention and transfer into innovation. Then this is, I think, the important part. So that one is, this is like what I think the new government says, something like the techno park. They use the term techno park, but I always use the term as Center of Excellence. Yeah, I think that's...
Thank you, Pak Haryo. So now I guess, Pak Nelson, same questions, but do you have anything to add to Pak Haryo's comments? I mean, you've been here also for a while, so you might have some, critical responses to what Pak Haryo was saying also.
First of all, thank you so much for the kind introduction in the early part. I think one of the things that very important to recognize is what Pak Haryo mentioned. Is the demographic population growth. In the younger generation side, which is what they call like demographic dividend. This is actually very important, where we can look into this as actually more of a long-term investment. Education side is very important. Of how we invest, because these are the people who are at the age of like 20s, or maybe even sometimes actually more than teenagers, up to the age of 30s or so. Now, where they will have a long-term impact for the country for many years to come. Now, how is this I hope there's nothing. Okay, yeah. So, So investment in the education is very important for the long term for Indonesia. Now, I look into this actually from two sides actually. One of the side is actually investment directly to advance the infrastructure and education in Indonesia. And also the second one is actually how to ensure that the Indonesian academics to be recognized as competitive in the global world. Now keep in mind, it's actually kind of like two separate things, but they're actually helping one another. Okay. Now the example that I'm looking for is actually like, for example, like the China and India. Many years ago, not too long ago, or even Korea too. 30 years ago, China, Korea, and India, they were not so recognized as like the world-leading, I guess, nations at the time. They're still developing countries. So they sent a lot of people coming to here, and they turns out to be having a very strong impact in the global world, in America, as well as in the global arena mainly. But these folks are able to have impact in helping to advance the institution back in their home country. For example, the China, the other one is actually India and also Korea as well. Now, as we can see right now, the three countries are quite experiencing an incredible pace of like, I guess you can say that impressive advancement in the country, both in education, technology, and also like scientific contribution to the global world. So I think these are the kind of things that we have to recognize. Part is actually like the culture. The second is how the mindset is of the country. The third one is about like the investment. Investment, I do not actually mention this investment as simply from government. It's actually coming from the four pillars: the community, the academic community as well, society and the academic community, as well as the two additional, which is the business and the government. So the government can allow the policy changes that is more flexible to enable this progress. The business can support, in both in terms of like more of an economic reason as well as some of the philanthropic reasons. The third one is the academic community can also be trying to, I guess, proactively, propose some of the good ideas on what to do. And the last part is the community. Community has to support. One of the things that I grew up with, if I remember, many years ago, many of us were in Indonesia, is that we always recognize that guru is a pahlawan tanpa tanda jasa, which means that they are like kind of like, we call them a hero, but they are supposed to be patriotic in terms of like serving the students. However, I think it's also important to recognize that educators in Indonesia is a profession. It's a profession that needs to be recognized as an important profession that we have to be able to support them in order for them to have a good lifestyle. Okay.
Thank you so much. I think we can also elaborate more during the Q&A, but you mentioned one thing that I thought could be very interesting for us to discuss now, which is the support from community, like the mindset itself. And if you remember our President-elect Joko Widodo during his campaign kept mentioning revolusi mental or a mental revolution. So from your viewpoint, what exactly needs to be revolutionized? Is there, and you've been here long enough, so you can probably look at our attitudes toward education from a critical point of view. So yeah, Pak Nelson and Pak Haryo.
That's a very important question. Let me answer the following. The first one is about, like, as I mentioned, about like the educators. What is the role of educators and how we view educators? Professors, in Indonesia with PhD is extremely lowly paid in general. Okay, and that's unacceptable. And then, of course, things are getting better in the past several years. In the past, I would say 10 years, things has been getting better, progressing in a positive direction. But we have to look into ourselves as a community, as a society. That if we have actually professors with, like, I would say, PhD degrees, and if we are unable to compensate at the right level, then it's very disappointing, and it's actually very discouraging for the younger generation to even consider pursuing the profession as educators, whether it's professors or perhaps also like teachers in the society. Now, this is something that I have been trying to convey this, and it's very interesting that in Indonesia, every time when I go there, this is something that people tend to be like, do not want to touch it because it's somewhat sensitive, okay? Because people who are there, they tend to be, they don't really want to talk about it because for them it's perhaps, if they complain about this, then perhaps, it's not helpful for their career, let's put it that way. But interestingly, in a one-on-one conversation, they tend to always share this thing. Like, there are certain personal frustration of like, why this cannot be, of course it has to improve. I mean, it's just more like how the society has to, I guess you can call it revolution mental. Like, where basically, like, let's change the mindset, okay? If, guys and girls have PhD and have like opportunity to either go to NUS or NTU in Singapore as a professor, if they go to Indonesia, I think there should be like a somewhat balance in terms of like compensation. It's not exactly identical because of the difference in cost of living, but we can expect like dramatic change or dramatic reduction in in terms of like the compensation. Now the second one is about the mindset. The mindset of like our young generation. I think this has been improved significantly, but I think we are at a point where we have to make a decision the following. Like, a lot of us, okay, who have been here in the US, I've been here for 19 years, for example. When I came to the US, 19 years ago, typically, the Indonesian students were not recognized as like, at least in terms of confidence level, okay? They tend to be a little bit more like, less, it's not, they are not ambitious, it's more like they are trying to be, there appear to be some barrier. The barrier is just set by ourselves, okay? Because we tend to be like setting our barrier that's determined by how easily satisfied we are, okay? Now, I think it's a time for Indonesian students, especially the younger generation, to look into this following, okay? We're a country that's actually the 4th largest in the world. It's time to recognize that there's really no barrier at all for us to be among the, perhaps the top 7 in the world in terms of like capability, contribution to society, and contribution to the global world, okay? Now, for example, let me put it this way. It's a very simple example that one can look into. This is coming from like knowing a lot of people, of course. There are many excellent Indonesian students, but once they come here, they including the PhD and etc. And typically, once they've completed their PhD, they tend to be like, okay, it's time to either go back to Indonesia, or perhaps let's not try to directly compete with like the foreigners. Okay, foreigners means I don't mean foreign, we're all foreigners here. But what I'm saying is actually like the Indian student, the Chinese student, the Korean students, Japanese. Okay, Now, so what I'm trying to point out is the following, like, it's very important for us, the Indonesian student, to recognize that if we work hard, discipline, we will be able to compete. Okay? We have very, very bright young people. I'm actually quite impressed with many of them. Okay? Now, the point is that once you compete, it's very important to recognize that sometimes it's very important for you to gain a lot more experience in US instead of directly immediately going back to Indonesia. Because when you do that, you tend to be like, yeah, I mean, if you're a PhD in Indonesia, I think you typically tend to be like, be able to get a lot of like good positions in Indonesia. But I'm saying actually sometimes a good experience of like 5 to 10 years will be very important because they will put you among the technical leaders in the global arena. Then after that, you can go back to Indonesia or perhaps having a career in America that's impactful for the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, this is my interpretation for revolution mental. I don't know really what the president-elect meant with this, but well, to me, for education, this afternoon I have a discussion with friends for lunch, and I think that's true that we have to change our mind that as a professor or as a lecturer or educators, the goal is really for, in the sense this one is for society and technology. If they have a publication, for example, it's really a real publication, not only right now, some, I think I can say most of them, because like I mentioned that there are 3,000 universities and higher education in Indonesia.